In today's episode, we're talking about strategies that'll help you enjoy going out to eat without sacrificing your weight loss goals. Hi there, I'm Chris Barlics. Welcome to another episode of Weight Loss on the Daily. All right, it's confession time. Today we're going to talk about one of my favorite pastimes in the whole wide world, and that's going out to dinner. I am a foodie. I love going to restaurants. I love eating out, right? But if we're not careful, eating out can jeopardize our health, fitness, and weight loss goals because it's easy to consume upwards of 2,000 to 3,000 calories in one sitting. So today what I wanted to do is give you some tactical strategies so that you can enjoy eating out without sacrificing your goals. So it all starts with planning out what you're going to do before you get to the restaurant. So going online, looking at the menus, and planning out everything you're going to eat and drink before you get there. Because as they say, failing to plan is planning to fail. So that way you won't go to the restaurant and look at the menu and wonder, because when you do that, you start making bad choices and you start getting tempted by all those delicious sounding words that are on the menu. So plan out what you're going to have before you even get there. Also, a common thought is save your calories for when you go out to dinner. So don't eat a lot during the day. That's a bad strategy. Do not show up at the restaurant starving because you will consume far more calories during that sitting than you would have if you ate normally during the day. So eat normally during the day. My actual tip is drink a glass or two of water before going to the restaurant, just to make sure you're not dehydrated as well, because as you know from previous video, dehydration and hunger, what do? They mimic each other. So sometimes you think you're hungry when you're really thirsty. So drink some water, that's key. Now when you get to the actual restaurant, big tip is avoid snacking at all costs. Like I said, I'm Italian. One thing that we love is bread. And I'm guessing a lot of you share the same thought that I do. Bread is awesome. It's yummy. It's one of our favorite parts of going out. But by eating bread, we can cost ourselves 300 to 400 calories at least before we even start eating the meal, right? A roll or a piece of bread at a restaurant is like 100 calories, sometimes even more. So what I do, I push the basket of bread aside. That way I'm not tempted. Also, when you're going to order drinks, the less calories, the better, right? I would avoid soda at all costs, right? Soda just activates your sweet tooth and those receptors in your brain that crave sugar. Instead, drink water. If you're a wine drinker, one glass of wine, yes, is perfectly healthy for you and fine. So if you're gonna drink wine, limit it to one glass. Study actually proved that those that had 2 glasses or more of wine ate 30% more calories than those that only had 1 glass of wine or no wine at all. So limit it to 1 glass of wine. It's healthy and it'll prevent you from overeating. Now when it comes to actually eating, you want to limit the calories and the portions that you eat. So yes, things like when you eat salad, which I highly recommend you do, eat salad to help fill you up, gives you some nutrients as well, but be careful with the salad dressing. Stick to oil and vinegar if you actually can. But when it comes to the entree, we all know plate sizes have grown astronomically in the last 20 years or so, right? Because they just fill up a huge plate with the pasta or the meat, whatever you order as an entree. So one thought is, rather than order one entree, order 2 appetizers as your main meal. Because appetizers come kind of pre-portion controlled out for you, right? They have them in smaller plates and you have more of a variety to eat. So maybe you want to think about ordering 2 appetizers instead of 1 entree. But if that's not something that you want to do, you want to order your entree, well then you need to have a couple of strategies for portion control. One could be, as I talked about in a previous video, eating slower, like putting your fork down between bites. Another one could be saying, okay, I'm going to take half of this entree before we even begin, and I'm going to put half of it into a doggy bag to take home so I can have it for lunch the next day. That way what's on your plate is only half of the entree, and you can feel free to indulge and savor the wonderful food that's in front of you. Now, if you don't want to do that, if you think it's too much of a hassle, you absolutely can have the whole thing on your plate and just say, I'm going to eat half or I'm going to eat 3/4 of it, and I'll save the other half or quarter to take home. The key with all of these tactics that I'm giving you is you have to find what works for you, and that really boils down to knowing yourself. If you think you can absolutely have the discipline to take a full plate of food and only eat half of it and stop so you can save the rest for later, that's awesome. But if you know that probably won't happen, then it's probably best to take half of the food before you even begin and put it in a doggy bag and put it under the table, right? You can ask the waiter for one or waitress for one before the food even gets there. So when it does arrive, you have that plate or that doggy bag ready to go. Same thing with the bread. If you say, Chris, I really love bread, I'm not giving them up. Okay, great. You can have one slice of bread, but then you have to say, well, is it going to be enough? Because when I eat one piece of bread, no matter what, I usually find the bread on the table and I eat more. But if I don't eat any bread, I'm less likely to crave it, right? Those receptors aren't activated, right? Usually what I'll do with the bread is I'll tell the waiter or waitress to take it away. I'll say like we have a gluten allergy or something, and they'll be happy to just move on and not give us the bread. The key is just to know yourself. And then finally, of course, I'd be remiss talking about eating out without discussing dessert. When it comes to dessert, some people love dessert. I don't, actually, but if you are a big dessert person, you also want to be very careful. And yeah, I can tell you order the fruit instead of the chocolate. Whatever, that'll probably go in one ear out the other. And I know if you tell me to avoid certain carbs, I'll tell you to go fly a kite. So if you're telling me that right now into the computer, here's what I would recommend instead. Have your chocolate or whatever, but order one dessert and split it with a few people. So you can have your 3 or 4 bites to satisfy your sweet tooth and your craving. You'll get the taste, but you won't overeat. The key is to find strategies that will help you enjoy eating out without overdoing it. They do exist. It just takes some trial and error. I hope these strategies that I've outlined today are going to help you out. So as usual, you keep focusing on your why. I'll be here helping you figure out the how, because you, with a small dose of me, are achieving your weight loss goals one day at a time, even while enjoying eating out.